Gary, great to see you. Tell me what's going on up in your neck of the woods.
Well, you know, as I was saying, for every one battle we win, we get 3 more that come in, because the corruption is so deep, and they just have to keep feeding this beast and feeding this beast. There's just a never-ending supply of people coming to us. I'm the president of Americans for Legal Reform, the oldest legal reform group in the United States, and also the host of Long Island Backstory. Please like us on Facebook. So, but we do get people in. So we do win battles, and pretty much almost every case that we take, because we have the resources and the knowledge behind us,
right,
we do, quote, win.
Yeah.
But for every one that we win, we end up getting a couple more that come in again. People ask here, we're at the Million Parent March in Washington, D.C., 2017, and people ask, hey, what are you guys doing legislatively in New York? I've given up that battle, because we have a woman who's the head of the Child and Family Services Committee, and she will never let anything family law reform get out of the committee.
What's her name?
Helene Weinstein.
Okay.
And she's an attorney, of course.
Yeah, of course.
You can tell by the name Helene. She's a woman. Not that that's necessarily the answer, but she would get so much pressure from National Organization for Women and women's rights groups saying that this hurts women. Where does shared parenting hurt women? And besides, who gives a shit if it hurts men or women? It's supposed to be about the best interest of the children. And what I believe the best interest of the children is 50-50 shared parenting, the presumption of shared parenting for all. And if you go to court and you make allegations in order to stop the other person from getting 50% custody, and you're wrong because you don't have real proof, not hearsay, then guess what? You're the one who loses custody and pays. You got to take the money out of the system.
Right.
You got to take the fight out of the system. And that's the only way it's going to change. You know, this is only the 2nd year for the Million Parent March, and there was hundreds and hundreds of people here from all over the United States. It's a start, but we have to keep building and building. But you know what? There is starting to get an outrage. If you look at our jails, over 80% of people in jail are raised without a father in their home. We're raising a generation of people raised without children. Look what's happening in Chicago and Baltimore. A big part of it, in my opinion, is children raised without their fathers. We need to incentivize fathers being in their life and let people know that this is what's important. It's important to have 2 parents in your child's life, a mother and a father. So that's the way we were designed.
So Gary, you mentioned about fathers not being involved in children's life. Now, the myth that people would like to say, all of those people are deadbeat fathers.
Right. Well, let me
tell you. And the reality is...
So I've been doing this over 15 years now. I've met thousands, literally thousands and thousands of fathers. I've met thousands of women. And yes, women do come to me sometimes and say, my ex-husband is a deadbeat, he's not paying, and he's got the money hidden in the suitcase in China and Africa. I personally have never met a man who has a relationship with their children and has the means to pay and has not paid. This is an innate behavior for men to try to support their children, to provide for their children. I can tell you there are cases that have gone through mediation, many cases. And it's funny because mediation, the rate of people keeping up to their commitments is over 90%, where if somebody's ordered to pay child support and it's over their means and they didn't like it and they were removed to 1 dinner a week and every other weekend, the rate of non-compliance is 90% the other direction, where they don't comply. So that shows that there's something wrong with the system. If people have a relationship, men have a relationship with their children, a meaningful relationship, they will supply more than the courts would make them give to their children, more, because we get enjoyment out of it. But you know what? Writing a check to your ex and having your ex buy it for your child and say, mommy bought you this, when the money's not mommy's money, the money came from daddy. That's turning you into a fucking ATM. Nobody wants to be turned into an ATM. And listen, this is more and more happening to women, because now women are starting to make more money. And really they go where the money is. So listen, if it's a woman who goes to court, she's never worked, she's just the caregiver of the child, listen, she's gonna get custody. But now when you have women who are professionals, many times they're frowned upon. But if they look and they say, you know what, she's going to be all right, we'll take away her children, make her see them every Wednesday and pay child support. It happens to women too, and it's happening more and more. So for women to not want to be involved in going to presumption of shared parenting, it's foolish, because it's coming for you. And as I tell people, we have a lot of people here, listen, the reality is, and we can argue whether statistics are 80%, 70, 80, 90% of women get custody. I say it's close to 80 to 90% of women get custody. But guess what? For the 10% who lose custody, it's 100% to them.
Right.
And it's just as tragic for them.
Right.
So nobody, and listen, we're at the Million Parent March and we've met a lot of women. So in some aspects, it's worse for them because there's a stigma. Everybody knows men lose custody. But for a woman to lose it, there's a stigma. She must have done something wrong. The men, we've been living with this forever, that we're not good enough to get custody of our kids. The answer is shared parenting, the presumption of shared parenting. Get rid of the family courts. This bullshit with CPS, where you call it, you get a false allegation, and you get a woman with a 2-year college degree deciding whether you were abusing the children or not, when they know that they're used as a weapon in the divorce. People have been married for 5, 10, 15 years, never had a problem. All of a sudden they're in a divorce, and now they're a child abuser, they're a spousal abuser. This shit has got to stop. We have to prosecute the perjurers. That's very, very important. That's a big part of the issue.
Yeah.
Listen, judicial immunity is a goddamn joke. We all know the saying, absolute power corrupts absolutely. I can sue the President of the United States easier than I can sue my judge in family court. That's fucked up. There's something wrong when you can't sue this person, no matter what they do. Almost no matter what they do. They can disregard everything in front of them. They say, well, you can go appeal it. You can't appeal it because the appellate court's a rubber stamp for the lower court. So all these things need to change. We need to rise up. We need to fight the system one case at a time. And if we can do it legislatively, it's great. New York, we just can't because the corruption is so deep in New York. I'm from Long Island, Suffolk County. I call the epicenter of corruption. We are corrupt to our district attorney. Our chief of corruption, McPartland, is corrupt. Our chief judge in Suffolk County, Randall Hinrichs, he's corrupt. How can we expect change when everybody from the whole system, from the bottom to the top, is corrupt?
First thing that I remember hearing about this deadbeat dad stuff, Stephen Baskerville taken into custody. You probably have read his book, and how he did the research to find out that really was it was not existent. And then I read some other people talking about how the Democrats and Republicans, they want to act tough on families. What can we do to show that we're both, it's a bipartisan tough on families? And the only thing they could come up with, because the deadbeat dad, because there was no way.
Well, listen, it sounds great.
It sounds great, but it's a bunch of crap.
Listen, if there's a guy who's got the money, he's seeing his kids,
Yeah.
and he's not paying, that person should be punished. I don't believe anybody should go to jail.
Right.
I'll be on the record. Nobody should go to jail for child support, because in real life, if somebody's married and the husband decides to be a lazy bum and not work, oh well, it sucks. The woman's got to get a job. The wife's got to get a job. That's real life. It happens. We can't control what everybody does. Some people are jerks, but nobody should go to jail because of divorce. It shouldn't happen.
So you talked about the money issue. Can you elaborate on that a little bit more?
Well, obviously, there's incentive. Here we talk about Title IV defunding, which is part of the Social Security Act, where the more money they collect in child support, the more money the state gets, and the more money they collect as arrears, the percentage that they get for every dollar is even higher. So there's an incentive to not only take in more money, but to call the money arrears so they get more money for collecting arrears. And I guess when it was created, I think Ronald Reagan did it, the idea sounds good. We want people to pay for their children, but that's going. If we go to shared parenting, it's all off the table. I also don't believe in people paying a percentage of their income. That's got to go too, because that leaves more room to fight. Let me tell you, I don't care if you make $50,000, $100,000, or $1 million. It costs the same damn thing to feed your kids. It costs the same thing to go to college. Actually, it costs less if you make less. So you got to take this whole money thing off the table. What does it cost to feed a child? When they say you have to put a roof over their house, so what happens if you don't have the kid? You're going to live in the street. You're still going to have a roof over your house. This whole concept of more money is better. There is study after study that show that money doesn't equal happiness. You know what equals happiness? Two loving parents. That's what equals happiness. So you got to take this whole money thing. If one parent has to pay something, because listen, not every father wants to have custody of their kids. All right, but it still should not be based on their pay. You're de-incentivizing people to work, because who wants to go get a better job when you're going to have to give 30% to the government, 30% to your ex-wife, and you're going to be left with nothing? How many times have you heard somebody say, I don't want to work overtime because the government's going to take all the money? How do you think it is with child support? You're going to give it to your ex-wife who's maybe holding the kids back from you? You're not going to want to do it. Take that off the table. This is what it costs to feed a kid in Long Island. This is what it costs to feed a kid in Massachusetts. This is what it costs in Iowa. And that's what you pay if you don't have custody. Otherwise, you share, and it'll all work out. And there is a model for this in Scandinavia, where there is a presumption of shared parenting. You don't even go to court when you get divorced. You send in the paper, I am now divorced, and that's it, and everybody goes on with their lives.
So you mentioned about the state getting money off of this. I don't know if you saw the video, but last February or January, we were at a meeting with Attorney General Ken Paxton of Texas, and Jody Mueller asked the question, wrote it down, about the funding that you're talking about. And he has like 4,200 people working in the Attorney General's office. 2,600, 62% are devoted to child support. He got up, this was a Tea Party meeting, and he talked about how every $1 they spend on collecting child support and arrearages and stuff like that brings in the state $12.25. And he said publicly, now again, this is Tea Party people, so he's probably like, yeah, everybody's gonna like this. There's a lot of money involved, and we are the best at collecting it. And it speaks to what you're saying. Now, the problem is that these people don't look at it as being corrupt. They don't look at it as they're breaking families. They're destroying relationships between parents and children and everything else. And so what you're talking about, getting the money out of that, absolutely.
Yeah, you got to take the money out. I mean, that's just asking for
yeah.
The whole thing from incarceration, family, law guardians, getting appointed to them, all these attorneys getting money, all the judges. I mean, we go to court, and you can see the videos on Long Island Backstory when we go to the court, and the court parking lot, 5 days a week, is not a parking spot there. Literally thousands of parking spots filled up with, there's no reason for this. Get rid of the family, get rid of the family courts, and start to encourage. You know what, you want to make people pay child support? How about the people who decide they don't want a relationship with their children? Those are the ones who pay. Nobody, listen, we're here with hundreds and hundreds of people fighting to be with their children. That's messed up. This is America. We have a right to be with our children. And that's the issue. All these people, listen, I'm not talking about the people who abuse their children, but you know what? Somebody may be a jerk. Who cares? That makes the children better children.
You know, you talked about the parents that want to be there, and the issue that most parents and even grandparents are facing is that the states, the way that the laws are right now, disincentivizes that and will not even permit it. Children's Protective Services has more rights to my grandchildren than I do as a grandparent.
It's disgusting. Yeah, I mean, and even you mentioned we call it Child Support Enforcement Unit in New York. They have more power than the courts. They don't do no due process, nothing. They have 18 things that they can do, which is worse than criminal. Yeah. They could put you in jail. They could take away your driver's license, take away your passport, garnish your pay, put a lien on your house, take away your professional license for a fucking divorce. This is wrong. We got to stop it. And if you want to keep it, here's what I say. You think it's such a great thing? How about when somebody alienates the child? I've been in court countless times, including my case, where the judge finally says to me, Mr. Jacobs, what do you want me to do? I can't drag the kids out of their house. Your wife can't drag the kids out of the house. My answer now is, just take the paper from the Child Support Enforcement Unit. Do the 18 things that they do to encourage it. Put them in jail. Take away the license. Make them pay for it. Because what are you saying? You're saying that it's way more important to spend money on children than it is to have parental time. That's what the courts are saying, aren't they? By saying, we'll enforce the money, but we're not going to enforce your visitation and your time with your children. That tells you what the priority. This bullshit, the best interest of the children, is fucking nonsense. It's nonsense. The best interest of the children is to have two parents who love them in their lives. End of story.
Wow, that's tremendous. Hey, one final question, and you can always add anything you want to, but are you free at all to talk about Dr. Carlos Rivera?
Well, you know, if you could look up, we've done a lot of videos on Long Island Backstory.
Right.
He's a pediatrician from Long Island, and Carlos has been open in saying that he suffers from bipolar disorder and depression. Unfortunately, going through the court system made this worse. I mean, he's had a lifetime history of it, but going through the court system made this worse, where he actually had suicide attempts. 2 days after a suicide attempt, he was released from the hospital as a professional courtesy because he is a pediatrician. They released him to family, gave him a lot of medication, and said, hey, try to get your life back in order. What they did was they put a paper in front of him, a document to sign, giving up custody and making him pay more than he could afford to his ex-wife, an insane amount of money. And he signed it under duress. Well, of course, he couldn't keep up to it, fell behind, was put in jail for 6 months. This is a shocker. Lawyers are supposed to be smart, right? Judges are supposed to be smart. What do you think happens when you take a pediatrician and put him in jail for 6 months? Do you think his patience these kids sit around and say, hey, we're going to wait for Dr. Rivera to get out of jail. No, they go to get a new practice. So he gets out of jail and he gets a new and everybody's gone. He loses his practice. Well, now he's trying to get a job. Well, who wants to go to the doctor who went to jail? Because people watching this, I'm assuming, understand that people go to jail for child support. But people who aren't familiar with it say, I don't believe it. He must have done something wrong. They would never put you in jail for child support in this country. But they did. So he's fighting now. They're trying to put him in jail because now his earning potential is even more diminished. His depression is even worse because now he's not only lost his kids, his marriage broke up, now he's lost his practice and he's lost his whole career. So they're trying to put him in jail for another 6 months. His disgusting, disgusting wife. What kind of mother does this to try to put him in jail? How about letting him get back with, which we made offers to try to let him get away with his $600,000 approximately in arrears. Let the man go on with his life. You know he suffers from depression. How about you try to let him get better so he can pay? This man wants to work. The man wants to pay. But unfortunately, he can't because he's just so deep, which, I mean, I can go on and on, but, just as a sidebar, Carlos Dr. Rivera was put in jail for 6 months without a jury, without a judge, without due process. This is America? This is America. The man had a support magistrate, I believe, put him in jail. Yes, she heard the whole case and then went to the judge next door. She said, oh, I think he should go to jail. And the judge put a stamp so they could say a judge put him in jail. Our Constitution is set up that we should have a jury of our peers so that this doesn't happen. You don't get a biased judge who's got a hard-on for him to put him in jail for 6 freaking months without a jury. And of course, they can never do a jury because anybody with common sense would say, I'm not putting a man in jail because he can't keep up with his child support. But that happens in America, and that needs to change too. But this can all be done with the presumption of shared parenting. Get rid of the child support enforcement unit, reform child protective services, because we read all the time kids who really, really are being abused. They don't do anything about it. All they do is they go after the innocent people who they know this is being used as a weapon. Just like the judges who give false orders of protection every day, like they give them out like candy. They know they're bullshit, but they don't care. It feeds the system. All needs to change.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Outstanding.
Thanks.
Thanks so much, Gary.